Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another session of Project 101 at Daily Crypto News. I'm Sarah, your host, and I'm here with growth lead of Syrup, Martin. And I will give a small introduction, of course, but if you have been around in this space for a while, then you guys must have heard about Maple, and they are back in the game with a new incubator project called Syrup. Of course, I love this name. And they are coming with a juicy, sweet yield. And Syrup is a new decentralized protocol that offers broad access to high quality, secure yield through institutional lending. And institutional fund coming to DeFi is always interesting and always a positive sign. So I brought Syrup into DCN. And by depositing USDC, we will get something called Syrup USDC, which works as an LP token. And then you'll start immediately earning some yield. And of course, it's kind of boring if I explain it. So I'll have Martin to explain a little bit more about it. Welcome, Martin. Welcome to DCN.
Thank you. Now you actually explained it super well. So
All right, all right. I've been eyeing on this project for a while, and we have talked some time before the recording. But I would love to hear your own introduction with your own words for those who couldn't understand my introduction.
for sure. Yeah, that sounds great. And thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be here.
Of course.
So yeah, before we really get to syrup, let's quickly just do the Maple 101. Of course, most of you might know it, but just for the ones that don't. So Maple is really an institutional DeFi marketplace where lenders and borrowers come together. So institutional borrowers, can access lending facilities to grow their businesses. And most of the loans are over collateralized. And lenders can, of course, deposit and earn yield in different strategies, right? So there's like some lower risk strategies and some higher risk strategies. And right now it's really institutional, right? So all lenders are institutional as well. So they all need to be accredited, go through KYC, go through onboarding. And now by adding the syrup to the Maple, so, finally becoming Maple syrup, we're actually opening it up broadly for everybody. So everybody in DeFi can now access those institutional yields by just depositing straight into syrup. So it's really just as seamless as any other DeFi protocol. You connect your wallet, you make a deposit, and you start earning yield immediately. And of course, that comes with all the benefits of the institutional side, right?
Yeah.
So you have high quality counterparties, high quality collateral, continuous monitoring, and a bunch of other benefits, while also having the composability of DeFi and being able to integrate, with all these other DeFi protocols, and just having the flexibility of, for example, having AMM liquidity, being able to move it around to different wallets. At some point, we want to have Syrup USDC enabled as collateral as well on, different places. So it really brings those two worlds together in a beautiful way.
Yeah. I think everybody heard about institutional or rather C5 fund coming into DeFi, and it's being utilized on chain. In Europe, for example, if you go to conferences, a lot of institutional funds coming to be the speaker, and then talks about how much effort and how much interest they have been receiving to finally deals digital assets and aka cryptocurrency. And I'm it's kind of a no-brainer but also mind blown that institutional lending and yield and all these investment strategy is flourishing to the point where retailers can also benefit it. And I would love to know where are we in terms of institutional coming to DeFi? Maybe from the Maples experience.
For sure. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, that's of course what everybody's been saying, right? Since I joined the space in 2017, it's always been the
Yeah.
institutions are coming, the institutions are coming, which has largely been a narrative for many years.
Mm,
But now we're actually seeing it. So obviously we got the ETF approval, but also in Maple specifically, we see a lot of lenders. Obviously on the borrower side, we deal with a lot of
right.
institutions, but on the lender side, actually new capital entering the space, we see a lot of institutions. And the reason that they like DeFi is because in traditional finance, rates are very standard, right?
Mm,
So you have like different layers and okay, the risk-free rate, and then you have like corporate bonds, and there's all it's like very specific spreads between those.
Mm-hmm.
So maximum, you're going to be able to earn like 12 to 15% yield. Obviously, in DeFi, yields are much higher than that, right?
Right.
So at Maple, we, for example, have a 20% product. And you also have other DeFi protocols like Athena that, at times have even higher yield. And on top of that, you obviously have like point systems and things like that. So I think that's what institutions are mainly coming from on the yield side, which is the yields are just simply higher.
Mm.
And because they're higher, they actually have to look at it, right? Because if they then add even a small portion of their portfolio in that higher yield bucket, their total portfolio is still going to earn higher yield, and
Yep.
they can still do it in a proper risk adjusted way. So that's also what we then stand for at Maple, which is we want to give that institutional white glove experience, credit underwriting. We have all these institutional processes. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's hard to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can assure you that many of those due diligence cycles take months, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we're literally for months, on a weekly basis, talking to these institutions before they pull the trigger.
Right.
But ultimately, that's what's needed, to really bring them into the space.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we see a lot of institutions, especially in the US, the UK, and Europe, that are joining, and those are really the big names.
Yeah.
Obviously, I cannot really disclose specific names, but those are the names that you would see in the news as like big, big credit institutions.
Mm. And under the syrup, I love the simplicity of the website, and for the listeners, of course, if you're interested, syrup is now open for the waitlist. So if you're like me, then I highly recommend to go and join the waitlist. But um, of course, if you just want to earn money, then I think it's perfect. The explanation about, okay, deposit USDC, you earn yield. But for the people in the crypto, you, I think, might owe a little more explanation on how it works and what kind of yield we're talking about, and how do we get that yield behind the scene.
For sure, yeah, that is a great question. And it's important to know that the way that the yield is generated has been going on already for like 9+ months.
Okay.
So Syrup is not a new financial product.
Mm.
It's really just plugging into the Maple institutional lending business.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that yield is generated is mainly by over collateralized loans. So there's digital asset institutions that have a lot of Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana on their balance sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to sell that, right? Because they have a constructive view on the direction of the price.
Yep.
And they basically want to unlock liquidity against it, either
Mm.
for working capital, like paying their employees or other things, or they want to actually buy additional assets, right? They want to increase leverage.
Yep.
So we then take custody of those of that collateral, and then we provide a loan against it, and those loans are over collateralized. So the average collateralization level is like 140, 150% over collateralized.
Okay. Okay.
And they pay between, let's say, 10 and 15% interest on those loans.
Uh-huh.
And then in some cases, we can also then use the collateral to earn some additional yield. So
Yep.
we can, for
Yep.
example, take some SOL collateral and stake it, to earn additional SOL yields.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we have been, in the last 3 months, we've generated 15.7% net API on USDC, which is obviously
Nice.
quite high.
Very, very juicy. Very, very juicy. But how maybe it's a sensitive topic, but I think it's important to pinpoint it and get some answer out of you. Like how secure / compliant are we talking here, in terms of generating this yield?
For sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So all the assets are held in qualified custody.
Mm.
So, with like the big custodian. So we recently did an announcement with Anchorage. So that's actually where most of the assets are held.
Mm.
But we also have relationships with other custodians, just the big names in the space. So it's all qualified custody, which is regulated. And there's also insurance, right?
Mm.
So, but these custodians have a really good reputation. So that's one of the differentiators as well, where if you would put it in another DeFi protocol, it's typically sitting in smart contracts, right?
Mm.
And those smart
Yes.
contracts can be hacked. So
Mm.
that's obviously one thing
Exactly.
that we take away, which is also demanded by our institutional lenders, right? They also otherwise, they also go through this whole due diligence process.
Right. Right.
So So that is really on the security side, and then on the risk side of like the loans themselves. So we underwrite all borrowers. So we check their balance sheets, make sure that they have sufficient assets in case the price of the collateral would drop,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can top up collateral. But then also the collateral itself, that's the ultimate security, right? That we have, because we have that in custody. So
Yeah.
in case the collateral value would drop, we would issue margin calls, and we have
Mm-hmm.
actually issued, we have published an analysis recently, but I think it's like about 8 margin calls that all got cured in a couple of hours.
Okay.
And then we have never, because we do those margin calls, we actually typically don't approach liquidation territory, right? Because
Ah.
the collateral is already pumped up before we would even get there.
Yeah.
But if we were to get there, then we can always liquidate the collateral, right?
Yes. Yes.
And that liquidation level is still above the level of the actual loan.
Mm-hmm.
So, the amount of collateral would still be larger than the total loan value to
Yeah.
protect principal. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm. 140 to 50 over collateralization. I think it's even in DeFi, it's pretty high, like very
for sure.
over collateralized. So when you try to meet that super high APY for utilizing these assets, is there a certain investment strategy to generate these yield, or I believe there is. Is there?
For sure. Yeah, so it's basically just issuing those loans, right? So there's those
Yeah.
institutions that provide that collateral.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously in return receive USDC,
Yeah.
and they basically pay an interest rate on that USDC.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Talking about USDC, is there any other plan to launch other stablecoin, and also curious to know why USDC? I feel like the circle's time has passed. It's Tether's time.
For sure, yeah. I mean, obviously, Tether has seen tremendous growth, which we're
Right.
also very excited about
Mm.
in Maple and Syrup. So we are actually planning a bit of alpha here. So we're actually planning a USDT product as well in Syrup. So
Okay. Okay.
that's
Okay. Cool, cool. What kind of timeline are we talking about? When can we get any update from the waitlist? I'm dying.
for sure. Yeah. So you mean the actual launch of Syrup or the
Yes, yes.
USDT
Actual
launch?
launch of
Yeah,
syrup.
for sure. Yeah. So that is going to be very soon, actually. So like we're going to get an announcement very soon about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I feel like this definitely explains everything about syrup since it is not yet launched. But I would also like to deep dive a little bit on institutional fund coming into DeFi, and the kind of work that you have done in maple syrup, and maybe the challenge up until this point where you were comfortable enough to launch syrup. Any challenges, any episode that you would like to share?
For sure. Um, yeah. So I think it's it has also been a long bear market.
Mm.
So like we have basically just been building, and as I mentioned, like in the institutional side, it's hard to really grow very fast because those institutions have like a long due diligence cycle,
Yeah.
right? So it typically just takes anywhere between like a month or two up until like a couple of months for these folks to really pull the trigger, and they typically also need to see a track record, right? So
Mm.
they will start with like a small position, and then they want to see it for like a couple of weeks, a couple of months. They want to see the reporting, and then they will increase their positions, right?
Yeah.
So that is the that has been a big challenge on the institutional side. But at the same time, that's also what makes it exciting and also what makes it sticky, right? Because once you
Mm.
have those institutions in your platform, they're also not leaving anytime soon, right? Because
Yeah.
they really want to then also enjoy those yields.
Yeah.
So it has a benefit as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think for us, the challenge has always been like, how do we grow faster on the capital side? And right now with Syrup, like we have finally found the key that like unlocks that door, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Syrup can obviously scale a lot faster because it is permissionless. So folks
Mm-hmm.
can just deposit and enjoy those yields. And then it's not only permissionless, but it also has like all the DeFi benefits we discussed, right?
Yeah.
So there's all these secondary use cases that make it then more valuable. So one thing we're really excited about is looping, for example,
Mm.
where you can use this as an asset to loop, and you can really increase the amount of yield even more. So yeah, like those are some, but yeah, that has been the main challenge for us that we're now actually solving with Syrup.
Yeah. Yeah. Please tell me more about this loopering of USDC. I would love to know more.
For sure. Yeah, so the idea is that, if Syrup USDC, which is like the LP token, could
Hmm.
be, it is collateral, right, in
Yeah.
DeFi. So first we need to build up, like the first step is to build up some AMM liquidity, right, so that it actually can be used as collateral, so that,
Mm.
in case it would need to be liquidated, there would be sufficient liquidity. So that's step number one. And then once it is activated as collateral, so that's step two, then what you could do is you could, for example, borrow, let's call it USDC or USDT, against your USDC LP
Hmm.
tokens, right? And then you could deposit that back into USDC. And then you could again post that as collateral and borrow, stable coins against it. Let's say Syrup USDC, like the target yield is like 15%, right?
Right.
And that's also what we've been generating in the past 3 months.
Uh-huh.
Um, but let's say you could borrow stable coins for like 5%, just as an
Hmm.
example. Then obviously, each time around you could like earn additional yield, like the 10% spread essentially.
Hmm.
Not precisely, but essentially the 10% spread you could then, loop a couple times, right? And there's protocols like Contango, where you can actually automate that. So then you
Uh-huh.
could potentially earn, 30-40% API. Obviously, this is not a recommendation, but it is, something that a lot of people in DeFi like to do.
So wait. So Syrup USDC, which is the LP token for you depositing USDC in Syrup, can be deposited back into Syrup. Is that what you're saying?
No, so you would then post it as collateral and then borrow stable coins, and then those stable coins you would deposit back into Syrup.
Huh. My. Okay. Okay. Will that be available upon launch right away?
Not yet, no. So we, but we are planning that. We are, and that's also something that has to go in collaboration with other partners, right? But
Yep.
that's the beauty of DeFi, is that you can then work together with, all these other DeFi protocols to
Hmm.
enable these type of products. So, but yeah, this is something. So the first thing that we're gonna enable is the AMM, right? So that you
Hmm.
can actually swap out your Syrup token for stable coins. In case you just wanna, for example, swap to stable coins or vice versa, right? You can immediately swap into Syrup.
Yep.
But then after that, we want to enable those type of use cases as well.
Mm. Wow, there I can just think of a lot of different possibilities for syrup to grow, and
Sure.
like you said, it's like it can accelerate really fast. I want to go a little bit zoom out a little bit and see in terms of this cycle of the market, and we're kind of going sideways, but still we are going into a bull market, and I believe that it's the beginning of it. And there are a lot of narratives coming out, whatever narrative that is, or whatever keywords that you've been interested in, and I would love to know which keywords or narrative or sector that syrup can benefit the most.
For sure. Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, we're planning to release an article on that very soon. So I
Ah,
can already give a little sneak peek into that.
yes, yes, please.
So basically, like where we see Syrup is like the intersection of like DeFi and RWAs,
Mm,
right? So, and what we mean by that is it obviously has like all the DeFi components we just discussed, right?
yeah.
So you can use it in all these DeFi protocols. It is yield, right, which is finance, but then it's also an RWA, and the reason is because the yield generated is by real businesses with real business models and cash flows, and they're just companies, right, with employees, and they have a business strategy and they earn money, and in order to finance their business, they need capital, right?
Yep.
And that's the way that we're generating this yield. So that's very much real yield, right? It is not some fake yield, right? It's
Yeah.
real world sustainable yield
Mm-hmm.
that is consistent as well. So, and I think that is really exciting, is that we're really operating at that intersection of RWAs and DeFi, and we really make it scalable and interesting as well. Because
Yeah.
obviously you have seen a lot of RWAs, which we also have at Maple, like a treasuries product, which is
Uh-huh.
5% yield, which is, I mean, that's a great product, and we have a lot of users, but I think 15% is obviously a lot more interesting, and it's going to bring a lot more people on chain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's ultimately what we're about, is not just providing good products to people that are already on chain, but also building products for people to bring them on chain.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I mean, I couldn't love more than RWA narrative. It's just going wild. But if I could make my imagination, this is just me purely imagining and speculating. And can I imagine somewhere down the line on Syrup we can have uh real world assets as a collateral and maybe put it into Syrup and maybe make some yield?
Right. So you would have like, let's say, real world like art, or some type of
Exactly.
assets that you would like borrow against. I mean, it is something we have heard, had people inquire about it.
Mm-hmm.
um so it is definitely something that could potentially be on the roadmap at some point.
Right.
So I think it would potentially be like on the Maple side, like a pool where you have lenders that want to lend into that, and then you have like a pool of borrowers that like want to unlock. So let's say it's like high quality
Yes.
art
Yes, exactly.
that want to
Mm.
borrow against that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then lenders are willing to. So far, what we have found on the practical side is that a lot of these products are like longer duration.
Mm-hmm.
So the loans are a longer term, right?
Yeah.
While in crypto, a lot of capital is like very short term focused.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to really lock somebody in for like a year, for example.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot easier to to have like 1 day or 30-day liquidity.
Yeah.
And then another one is like the assets are not liquid, right? So it's hard to liquidate an art piece,
Yeah.
right? You cannot just sell it on the open market immediately. So I think for that, like we need a lot of the building blocks. Like for example, Uniswap would need to have like a old like a Picasso pool, right? Or
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
Picasso art pieces of just like trading, for example. So I think that's a little bit further down the line, but it's definitely on the roadmap.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Wow. I now I kind of understand the intersection, Syrup being in the intersection of DeFi and RWA. It's literally breaking the wall or like boundaries in both sectors.
For
It's
sure.
if it has been kind of existing separately, and of course it RWA can be inside DeFi, but DeFi can also be inside RWA. It has been kind of collaborating relationship,
For sure.
but down the line we don't even have to define differently or separately, but just working together all the time.
Exactly. Exactly. Because in the end, everything becomes like a real world asset, right? At some point.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, and I think Syrup is really one of the first steps in that, simply because it provides like corporate loans on chain, which
Mm,
just happens to meet the the exact thing that like DeFi users are interested in, right? Which
yeah.
is like high yield with like short term liquidity.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Okay. I'm
that's exciting.
very excited. Very excited. I would love to know which chain are we going to launch first?
For sure. Yeah, so we're first launching on Ethereum,
Okay.
just because there's the most liquidity, right?
Yep.
We obviously at Maple we have a Solana product as well,
Mm-hmm.
so we are live on Solana on the Maple side. I mean, on the Syrup side, we don't have any timeline yet for Solana, but
Yep.
it is obviously something we consider, and we have the product already, so we could potentially enable it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But I think more immediate would be like the layer twos. So on Maple we already had a product on Base as well. So
Okay.
I think Base, Arbitrum, these type of layer twos are really where we will be looking next
Okay.
to go.
Okay. I guess Syrup doesn't need to find the next layer one or the next layer two to leverage on your launch. I just go classy, launch on Ethereum, and then we see how it goes.
For sure, yeah, and obviously that's where like most of our current network is as well.
Yeah,
Um, so I think it's a good place to start.
yeah, yeah. Of course. All right. I would love to hear about 2024 plan, the focus. What can we expect? If you could share a little more detailed timeline, I would love it.
For sure, yeah, yeah. So the launch is going to be very soon. And with very soon, I mean very soon.
Today?
Yeah, not that soon. I mean, maybe for the folks that are listening, to this,
Yes.
like it might already be launched, by the time.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
so it's going to be very soon. And
Mm-hmm.
then after that, we just want to do the AMM liquidity, right? That's like the first big step, so that the token itself becomes liquid. You can like trade, swap in and out.
Right.
and then have it as collateral, and then basically then it unlocks all these other like DeFi options, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it could unlock like a Pendle collaboration, or the Contango that I just referenced. We're also going to do some partnerships with like wallets and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So watch that space as well. Um, and on ETH there's actually going to be a big like syrup event. So we're really
Mm.
excited for that.
Good choice. Good choice
That's
of conference.
for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
that's in Brussels, so it's like right around the
Right.
corner.
Right.
But that's going to be actually something really unique that hasn't really been done yet in crypto that we're going to introduce. So
Yeah.
it's going to be very exciting. And then after
Okay.
that, we just want to scale, as fast as we can. Add new features. USDT is something on the roadmap.
Mm.
Potentially other assets as well. New chains. New distribution partners. So
Mm-hmm.
having syrup available and like fintech applications and things like that. That's something we're really excited about.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously on the Maple side, we just want to keep scaling. So we have our products. We found product market fit with over collateralized lending on both sides of the aisle. So we're really excited to continue scaling that.
I really support this journey that maple syrup is having, finding this fine line between Web 2 and Web 3. And I feel very familiar and comfortable with maple, and obviously syrup as well, being DeFi. But I could imagine onboarding institution was not at all easy, and you made it, and probably they feel very comfortable by now. So I love that you guys are doing something on the both side, in a healthy way, and I hope for the best.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
All right. That's all for today. I hope everybody learned something and enjoyed this talk. And I will make sure to upload this before Syrup launches. And thank you, Martin, for joining DCN. And if there's anything that I haven't covered, say hello, goodbye, and add those words here.
For sure. Yeah, thanks everybody for watching. It's exciting. Just go to syrup.fi and sign up or deposit.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in the next Project 101 session very soon. Okay. Happy hodling, everyone. Bye bye.